Hey, what's going on? And this is going to be another on the topic of racing. And just recently, last week, was the Memorial Day weekend, also known as Indy 500 and Charlotte 600. I'm going to call it Charlotte 600 since it's faster than saying Coca-Cola 600, but the Coke 600 and the Indy 500 weekend. And one of the big stories is always, before the race, who's going to do the Memorial Day double. And it's a thing that a few drivers have done, but not a lot have really been successful at. You have drivers like Tony Stewart, who was actually probably the most successful pulling this off. Robbie Gordon, who did it multiple times, most recently Kurt Busch, and then John Andretti, obviously, considering he's in Andretti. But there's three guys that I think, as far as on the Indy side of things, could possibly try the double, and might even be able to win the double. And that means like winning the 500 and the 600 in the same day. Now, how possible would that be? Probably not very possible. You have two races that you've got to win that are both 500 and 600 miles, and a combined 1,100 mile race. That's pretty insane. But I believe it's still possible. You have some drivers. Oh, not only that, but then you've also got the fact that it's two completely different race cars, so that's also a thing as well. But I still believe that there's at least three drivers on the Indy side of things that could possibly make a run for it. Will they make a run for it? Probably not, but it would be interesting to see how these guys would do. And those three guys are who I would say are Scott Dixon, Joseph Newgarden, and Will Power. Now, some of the reasons for this being the fact that they're some of the best IndyCar drivers around. There's no denying that at all. Joseph Newgarden is always up at the front. He's winning races at the same time. Then you've also got the 12 of Will Power, who's always a threat for wins, always a threat for championships. He's always up at the front as well. And then you've got Scott Dixon, last year's champion, he's last year's champion, so he's up at the front every race as well. But another thing that they have that not many other drivers in the field have is a team that also runs in NASCAR. And that's a big, big thing that I think you have to have if you're going to try to pull this off. Because you can have a team that's, a pretty big team in IndyCar, but then they try to go over to NASCAR. They just don't know or don't understand as much as, the big teams that are up there, like Penske Motorsports. Or Penske Racing, that's what it's called. Penske Racing, and then you have Chip Ganassi and his team, and those two teams are top contenders for wins almost every week. You can see how good Kurt Busch has been able to do, and I think if Kurt Busch wanted to try the double again, he'd have a much better chance at actually getting it, because he's in a Ganassi car now, and I wouldn't be surprised if Chip Ganassi said, you know what, let's bring in a third Indy car and let's put Kurt Busch into it. So that's another thing that I think could possibly work. But the difference here in why I would say that the IndyCar drivers have an easier time transferring over from the IndyCar to the stock car is the fact that they have the chance for more practice on ovals that are similar to Charlotte Motor Speedway. And these ovals are Texas and Atlanta. So if you wanted to try that, try to pull off the double, you also have the All-Star Open that you could stick that driver into, and he would be probably right in with it. Because not only would you have, I think there's two Texas races, I think there probably is two Texas races next year as well, but there's also the Atlanta race, which is actually quite tougher track, I would think, compared to Charlotte Motor Speedway. Then also, you used to have the Chase race at Charlotte, but now that changed into the Roval. But not only that, but you could probably stick them into a Truck Series or an Xfinity Series ride and just practice those drivers on those tracks, because the quad ovals are mostly the same, barring a few different changes. Maybe the layout isn't exact, and the banking probably is not exact as well. But not only that, you have very similar cars between the three series. The Truck Series would probably be much more beneficial, since those trucks run more like the Cup cars do right now. And you have so much more time to prepare the drivers for the race. And you have so much time to prepare IndyCar drivers as far as, learning the track, learning the way you've got to drive. And the difference between trying to train an IndyCar driver on the 1.5 mile quad ovals in a stock car, they have that learning curve where they've got to figure out that it's not an Indy car. It can't really go full throttle the complete way because it doesn't have all of the downforce that those cars have. But with the way that Cup cars have been running, it shouldn't be as much of an issue nowadays. But at the same time, you don't really have that much testing at Indy. So you can't really put a Cup car at Indy and expect very much out of it. Because really, the only chance that a Cup driver has to practice at Indy outside of the Indy 500 would be the Brickyard 400. And that's pretty much the only two races that are run on the Indianapolis Oval at that point. There are a few ways you could probably get around it because obviously iRacing exists, and that's usually considered to be one of the best simulators in the world as far as getting drivers prepared for racing and stuff like that. I mean, you see how William Byron was able to train on that and actually help his career out, but I don't know how much of that actually can be attributed to iRacing. But I think teams also have their own simulators, so at the same time, what you need to really have is you need to have the practice time in the real car, and you also need to have the team that can provide you a decent car for the race, and you also need to have a team that you really know, because with Chip Ganassi Racing, they know Scott Dixon, they know he's a good driver, they know how to handle him, and I'm pretty sure with the guys at IndyCar, they would be able to transfer over to NASCAR fairly quickly. As far as crewing is concerned, you'd probably have to get another pit crew into that team, train those guys for the part-time jobs, unless you have extra crew lying about. But also, I would think they would actually have extra crew, considering they ran 3 cars in the 500. But then you also have the Penske guys. They have 3 cars. They could add another car with Will Power, Joseph Newgarden, and that would still be a very, very powerful entry, because it's a Penske car, and Penske cars are no slouch, especially this year and in more recent years. Those cars have been on the ball, and it's just one of those things where I would expect someone from the Indy side, if they really wanted to do it, they would have the chance to do it, and they would be able to do it right instead of having a whole McLaren debacle, and I don't even want to get into that. So, but that's kind of what I was thinking as far as, who could run the double, who could maybe have the best chance at actually winning it in the near future if they want to run it. But honestly, I don't know what else to say on this topic other than, those 3 guys have probably the best chance, and a couple guys that you see that might have a decent chance in NASCAR would be the Busch brothers, because Kurt Busch has the team and the resources for IndyCar, and Kyle Busch, I don't think he'd be one to back down from a challenge like that. So let me see what you guys think in the comments. Maybe I'm off on something, maybe I'm not, but thank you guys for listening in on this little on the topic of racing. This is my second episode. I put up a 3 on my hand, but this is the second episode. I wasn't planning on making this a regular thing, so something to do on occasion between videos that I post. So thank you guys for listening in, and I'll see you next time.